Well, today finds me on section 13 of the New England Trail in Connecticut. Massachusetts has its own section numbers. This is in the town of Berlin, Connecticut. And I've done the parts of the sections on either side of this in the past. 2023 in the late fall, I did the part over near West Peak and Castle Craig. Castle Craig. And last year in 2024, I did the section just east of here on Higbee Mountain. So today's hike is going to be about 7 miles long and goes over Lamentation Mountain and Chauncey Peak. And I'm going to do about 7 miles, and I can connect back to the starting point on Spruce Brook Road, I should say, in Berlin by doing about a 2.5 mile road walk. So I'm going to be making a loop today and utilizing 7 miles of the New England Trail, which is going to be blazed in blue with an occasional New England Trail symbol to help us remember that this is part of the New England Trail, and is also labeled as the Mattabesett Trail in Connecticut. So the New England Trail is a amalgamation, I think is the right word, of other trails with other names. And occasionally you will see signs indicating that you're on the New England Trail, but it's got other names in other places. So it follows the courses. It basically was started about 15 years ago, and it follows the courses of already existing trails that already have their own blazes and their own trail names. So the Mattabesett Trail is where we are today in south central Connecticut. Spruce Brook is the name of the road where I parked. Where this enters the woods off of Spruce Brook Road, there is no parking, but there's a park up the street just a few tenths of a mile with a dog park and plenty of parking. So I just walked down the side of Spruce Brook Road for about 5 minutes, and I'm in Spruce Brook right here. Not much water today, but there's an old mill dam here. If I had a little more time today, I might do some fossil hunting. This reddish layer is the East Berlin Formation, which is the layer of rock just east of Lamentation Mountain. And that's the one where they found the dinosaur footprints near here. And I'm not going to take the time right now. I want to get some miles behind me, but if there's a little time later on and I find some exposures of that East Berlin Formation, this reddish sandstone and shale, maybe we could find the evidence of dinosaurs. The main layer we're going to be hiking across today forms these ridges, and that's called the Holyoke Basalt. And I think this is what this gorge is carved into right here. It makes nice angular blocks when it's been exposed by the forces of nature or the forces of human beings quarrying it. And it forms the ridges that the New England Trail follows for much of its course through Connecticut. So let's head south on the New England Trail over Lamentation Mountain and Chauncey Peak. And the blue blazes, either painted or these plastic rectangles, are what we're following right now. You have to walk on just a few hundred feet of a subdivision street. About 5 minutes after you start in the woods off of Spruce Brook Road, you end up on that subdivision street for just a few tenths, not even tenth of a mile, back in the woods on an old dirt road here. And we're kind of in backyards here, but no problem. I know this is not the way, that's not what we're going to see on most of this hike. So they put these trails where they can and get the right of way from the landowners. So keep that in mind. Be respectful, don't make too much noise, and the right of way will remain available. We're going to get back in some more mature woods here, away from this subdivided area pretty soon, and then we'll start recording again. Well, we sure got a nice day today. This is the last week of October, and it was this clear when I did West Peak and Castle Craig 2 years ago. Last year when I did Higbee Mountain, it was almost this clear, but there was a little bit of haze. I think the air is coming from the northeast right now, which should keep the haze from New York City emissions and the area of Connecticut that's really highly populated from affecting our view today. We'll see though. There was a little bit of ground level haze when I was driving over here this morning, but I think the air is mixing out now. So we'll see how clear it really is when we get up on Lamentation Mountain. We've gotten away from that subdivided area. We're back in normal woods. A couple patches of invasive plants, which I don't care for. I don't like hiking through them. They just don't look right. A little bit of barberry, a little bit of burning bush. And this looks natural, but they may have quarried it a little too. I don't know. They got a block here that broke off this cliff here. Boy, last year when I was up on Higbee Mountain, I found the Leatherman's Cave. This certainly could have been a spot he used too, but I don't think it was. Maybe just not quite enough overhang here to keep him dry, but it probably would work in a pinch. So this is our Holyoke basalt, which Holyoke is not the, doesn't describe what kind of basalt it is. That's where in the early days of geological mapping, they would basically name the basalt, which is a type of rock, after the town in which it was first described, the type location. So Holyoke, Massachusetts is 40-50 miles north of here. This basalt forms the ridges from that point all the way down to this area. So it forms many of the ridges around here, and this is a smaller cliff here, maybe 50 feet high. But what happens around here is you get these cliffs, even when you're not on the mountain summit, even in the smaller valleys on either side of the mountain, you get these blocks that have dropped down. I'm going to show it right here. So we are right in this area here where it says Snow Hill, and that darker orange color and then the yellow color. We're right in that layer between those, which is that Holyoke basalt. JHO is the symbol for it. And where it says D and U, to the left of that black line is the downside of the fault, and the U is the upside. So that's what we're looking at here. I think we're on that fault. And the upside is to my right. So that part was lifted up. And then the block of Holyoke basalt on the left here, we're looking north here, was dropped down, maybe 50-100 feet. And there's a fault between the two peaks we're going to climb today, between Lamentation Mountain and Chauncey Peak, that explains why those two peaks exist as well. We'll look at the map again when we get there. But a lot of these peaks have breaks in them. Between Castle Craig and Lamentation Mountain, there's several breaks in this ridge caused by the same type of faulting. Alrighty. Boy, the videos come out so nice in this kind of weather. It's just hard to get the sun out of your face this time of year. It never gets that high in the sky. We've got blue blazes, and Berlin Land Trust has some property around here too, so they've got their own blazes. They won't be with us the whole time. Yeah, we're following this fault. Probably a quarter mile at least, and boy, it's really noticeable right here. This is a good 75-80 feet of, again, where the block of basalt that I'm standing on has been dropped down into this valley. And the block on the east side of this brook, which is pretty dry right now, is standing high above us. So that same process forms the cliffs on the west side of Lamentation Mountain. So imagine this cliff here as Lamentation Mountain in miniature, and we'll be on top of those cliffs looking down into the valley below. Mount Higbee had the same kind of cliffs, and so did Castle Craig and West Peak. So that's what you get on the New England Trail through much of Connecticut and Massachusetts, is blocks of basalt that have been raised up above the surrounding valleys, either in miniature like here or in much larger scale where it's several hundred feet. Alrighty, well, Spruce Brook Road, where I started this section, is 150 feet above sea level. We're up to almost 600 now. Only moderately steep. The footing, again, that Holyoke basalt breaks into angular chunks. So they're under the leaves, and you just got to, put your foot down and make sure there's nothing wobbly underneath it. But you're going to find that on a lot of the trails where this same type of rock occurs. So nothing out of the ordinary for this area. Okay, well, we've reached the spine of Lamentation Mountain. This isn't the highest point, but it is, you know, where the land stops going up and starts dropping down on the west side. So we'll start recording views and anything else that comes along as we head south at this point along the crest of Lamentation Mountain. Looks like this Berlin Land Trust has trails going this way to the north. I may just look down there for a minute. Let me see what's back there. And those yellow blazes lead to this outcrop here. I didn't go up it just because the trees are taller than the outcrop. I didn't think I'd get a view, at least not right away. So we'll just turn around and go right back to the Blue Blaze New England Trail Mattabesett Trail combination. Silver Lake is right down here. I believe that's a natural lake. We should get some better views of it shortly. They had to use that lake for a water source last year at this time. There was a pretty bad brush fire, forest fire up here just about a year ago in late October 2024. I would expect to find some evidence of that as we hike south. Last year ended up being a normal year for precipitation. It wasn't a problem with the total for the year. The problem was it didn't rain at all for 3 months at a time of year where there's a lot of leaves coming down and the humidity gets a lot lower in the fall. So, you know, you get days where it's, you know, the dew points in the 30s and the highs in the 70s. Just like out west, it makes a very low relative humidity and the fires spread much quicker on days like that, especially if you get any kind of breeze. So that's what happened. Unfortunately, one of the firefighters lost his life during that battle. It went on for several days. They were using helicopters to dunk the big collecting bag in the lake and then dumping it on the side of this mountain. I think the fire was mostly on the west side, and this ridge probably made for a natural fire break. It's the ridge crest itself. So unfortunate event, and they believe it was caused unintentionally by a campfire that wasn't completely extinguished. So good enough reason to, if you can't put a fire out, don't build it. All right, well, we're gradually ascending Lamentation Mountain. No real open views yet, just through the trees, which, you know, many of the leaves are down now. So we're getting some views through the trees. And yes, I've been seeing evidence of that brush fire. I wouldn't call it a forest fire because I don't think most of the trees were actually on fire. It was just the ground level dead wood and leaves. You can see a lot of charring on the down limbs here. Right here, some evidence of that. And you know, there's been enough tree mortality from gypsy moth and hemlock woolly adelgea that there's a fair number of dead trees in any chunk of wood you hike through in Connecticut. And emerald ash borer as well. Oh, this is not the kind of place we find a lot of ash, so I think it was mostly the downed and dead oaks and hemlocks that were burning on the ground. But this oak here is specially adapted to survive these fires. Our chestnut oak has very thick bark, and underneath these thick blocks is the living tissue, so it protects it. And you can see where it did get charred, at least on 2 sides of the tree. 2 or 3 sides got burned, not too severely, but enough to damage it. But it got leaves this year, so since the fire we've had leaf out, and it doesn't seem to have harmed the tree severely. There's still plenty of golden chestnut oak leaves up there. So, and a sprout here. So that sprout came up after the fire, it looks like. Well, we've been on the crest of Lamentation Mountain Ridge, just gradually ascending. for 3/4 of a mile, maybe even a mile. Not too many clear views along the way. A couple spots where you could try to sneak one in between the trees. I think I found one right here, and we're very close to the summit where there are expansive views, supposedly. I've never been up here before, but I believe there are, according to all the accounts I've read of this mountain. We got a nice little view right here from this perch right here, looking right down at Silver Lake. And over towards Castle Craig, over that way. We'll keep recording these views as we do the final ascent to the about 720-foot summit. It's the elevation of the summit of Lamentation Mountain. I believe we're almost there. All right, well, I think we're at least the first of several overlooks on top of this mountain. We're looking south right now. There's a golf course right at the bottom of the mountain here. And I don't see the profile of Sleeping Giant yet, but we might get a better look in that direction in a few minutes here. It's in the general direction in which we're looking. And then Castle Craig is right in the center of your screen there. I did that section of the New England Trail 2 years ago on a day this clear. I started actually on, I think it's called South Peak, which is the ridge right next to it. It has its own trail system that branches off the New England Trail. And then West Peak is where the radio towers are, right behind that. That has great views looking the other way towards the west, towards Mount Southington ski area in Bristol. And the ridge that is on lowers in elevation enough we can see through over that ridge to the Litchfield County area, Bristol area. There's the Otis Elevator Tower right there, just outside of Bristol. And then the view up the Rift Valley. It's not really the Connecticut River Valley here. It's a valley, but the river doesn't follow it the whole way to the Long Island Sound. And Mount Tom in Massachusetts. I'm zoomed in on Mount Tom. I'm going to zoom in just a little more. And there it is in your center of your screen. And it's a little blurry that far away. It's like 40 miles away. That's the mountain near Holyoke, Massachusetts, where they probably first studied the Holyoke basalt and gave it its name. And that same rock layer forms the Seven Sisters just east of that. And then Hartford is very visible from here. It's a straight shot up Route 15, which is in the foreground here, to Hartford. Right there is the skyline of Hartford, Connecticut, and the hills of Tolland County east of it over around Somers area. Alrighty, well, frequent views await you as you head southbound on Lamentation Mountain. There are several places you can just go right over to the edge of a cliff. And I think we're getting one more here looking south. We may be able to see something that we didn't see from the last view. Let's take a look here. Eventually we're going to drop down off this ridge to a reservoir and then up Chauncey Peak. And yes, I do believe we've got the additional view that we couldn't get from that last overlook. And we are looking due south here. I'm going to zoom in. That's a straight shot down Route 15 to New Haven area, or Route 5 as well. Route 15 goes just west of New Haven through the West Rock Tunnel. And right there is downtown New Haven with a little knob right in front of us with some streets on it. It's kind of interesting. There's downtown New Haven. I don't know if that's East Rock or West Rock to the right of downtown New Haven, depending on, I'd have to get out the map and figure out the angle at which I'm looking at it, but that's either East Rock or West Rock. Both have great views. And then our sleeping giant is right here. He's not quite as obvious, not so obvious it's the sleeping giant from this perspective. There's some nubs there. The head is on the right, the chest and then the feet are at the left. And then right back over to our South Peak and Castle Craig and West Peak. Right there. Alright, well, there's a man-made lake between Lamentation Mountain and Chauncey Peak. Hubbard Reservoir. And what a beautiful view. Boy, is it so good. Good lighting today. Of course, good lighting is easy to get this time of year. It's pretty common. So, we're going to look up at where we're going next. And it looks pretty impressive. It's actually slightly lower in elevation than Lamentation Mountain, but still looks pretty impressive. Big old cliff right there. Another one right there. Another one right there. So the trail zigzags up to the top there. I think there's views in several different directions, including looking east. Now, normally these rock cliffs only form on the west side of these ridges because of the way they're faulted. But there's a quarry on the east side that gives you a view looking east. And the quarry is eating away more than half of Chauncey Peak from what I could tell. I don't know if they own the whole mountain or not. We'll find out. At the rate they're going, if they did own the whole thing, it would be gone in a matter of, a few generations. So we'll see about that. But we'll enjoy the view while we got it. We're about 4 or 5 miles into our 7-mile section here. It was 2.5 to the first view on Lamentation Mountain. I've probably come at least another 2 since then. So, what a beautiful afternoon. Alrighty, well, 7 or 8 different switchbacks so far. Ascending Chauncey Peak has made it pretty tame as far as the steepness goes. It's getting a little rockier right here. We're in the zone that collects the boulders as they fall off the cliff. They all kind of tumble their way down the mountain, but they hadn't made it to the bottom. The bottom half wasn't rocky at all. Alright, well, we got the unnatural view coming up first here. Scrambled up between those ledges. And this is the top of the quarry here. I've got it marked off with these boulders. Don't go past the boulders, you'll be fine. But you can see, a lot of this mountain has been removed. And it's not the only quarry around here that has taken huge chunks of these ridges for building materials, mostly for roadbed and driveways and crushed stone. And looking east, you can see Higbee Mountain right there. So that's what I did a year ago, almost to the day. And the day almost is nice. The only thing about that mountain is a beautiful mountain, but I-91 is right underneath it. You can't see that from here, but it kind of it detracts a little bit from it. But none of these ridges are in a wilderness area. This is a populated area. If you get a view that's not full of roads and houses, it just means you're looking, you know, towards an area that was undeveloped. But still worth the hike. And right down here, in the shadow of this cliff, got some workers there. Got a drill there. And in the shadow of the cliff, I can plainly see where they've drilled in and put dynamite. I'm assuming dynamite down in the holes for the next blast to break free a chunk of this mountain, and then the pieces get hauled away in trucks down here to the crushers. And they make different size angular rock aggregate, I think they call that, for different purposes. So that's what we got here on the east side of Chauncey Peak. Again, they don't have much further to go till the whole mountain is gone, but I don't know what the don't know who owns what, but we'll enjoy this view while we got it, because it is a nice view looking northeast here towards the hills of east of Hartford. Hartford is right there, and then east of Hartford, Glastonbury, Tolland County area is right over this way. Middletown is just over the next ridge, and then the Mesomohaic, I think, State Forest has a trail that goes along that ridge over there. The Shenepsit Trail, I think it is, goes from there all the way up to the Massachusetts border. I've done pieces of it, never recorded, but I've done pieces of it. Alright, well, we've got a nice overlook to the west here on Chauncey Peak. This is like 30 or 40 feet lower in elevation than Lamentation Mountain, which is kind of around the corner here. We can't see that, but Castle Craig and West Peak are directly in front of us there. The Hubbard Reservoir is at our feet here. And a great view looking towards New Haven. We got a taste of this earlier, but I think this is even better here. It's off in the distance, but it's there. Go way out to 10x zoom, we'll see it clearly. So I think that is East Rock to the right of downtown New Haven, and West Rock is probably being blocked by the Sleeping Giant, which is right over here. That's my guess without taking the time to get out the map and figure it out. So there's New Haven, and you can see Long Island Sound way back there. We're at the limit to this camera right here. It's a little hazy down there, but there is water in view. And I can see it, but the camera can't. There's a large building on the north shore of Long Island that you can see from a lot of these viewpoints, and I don't know what building it is, but I see it every time I climb one of these ridges. So it must be really large. So that's what we got. We'll keep recording what we got. We got to get some miles behind us too. So we'll record what we can and try to keep moving. Well, folks, if you didn't have time to do Lamentation and Chauncey Peak, Chauncey has more overlooks, especially the man-made one to the east. But this west side, once you pass that man-made overlook, which goes on for a while, the trail doesn't follow it, but you could stay on that service road for a while and get back on the trail. They run parallel to each other. We've got continuous cliff line here. Looking up at this, you could kind of see that, so I'm not surprised. But this is amazing views as you go here. And Lamentation was beautiful, but this is even, you know, there isn't as much underneath it that's developed. So it's a lake and more woods, and a nice shorter hike if you want to do that. The park, there's a park that owns this part of the trail. The city of Meriden owns this part of the trail, the land that this trail goes on, and it's called Jafrida Park or something like that. It's got a whole network of trails, so you can make loops around this lake. You don't have to continue on the New England Trail to do this peak. You can make a loop, and they have a map that you can download. Alright, well, we're going to finish up this 7-mile section of the New England Trail, section 13 of the New England Trail, through the towns of Berlin, Meriden, and Middletown, Connecticut, this afternoon. It's been about 2 miles since I made the recordings on top of Chauncey Peak, and you come down gradually. The footing doesn't get better till you get off that. On the geological map, I showed that layer that was like a dark orange. That Holyoke basalt makes for wobbly footing even after you're off the mountain. Now we're on the easiest footing you could ask for, pine needles with no rocks. So underneath us is that East Berlin Formation, which when exposed you can find the dinosaur prints, but you got to find a stream or a place where they've cut through the hill to make a road. Or dug into the ground somewhere. Otherwise it weathers into this nice soft dirt. So makes it for easier footing the last mile or so. We're going to come out on Atkins Road, and that's where this section ends, or if you were coming northbound, this is where it would start. We're going southbound. Section 13 ends here, and we'll be jumping into section 12, which I recorded a lot of that last year, the part that wasn't road walking. Well, what we have to do to get back to where I started is walk the road. If anybody wants to retrace my steps here, this is going to be about 10 miles today. Took me about 6 hours to do the hiking part with a lot of stopping to make videos and take photos. I'm sure you could do it in 4 hours if you weren't stopping as much as me. But pleasant walking. I'm going to get out the map once I get back to my parking spot and review the course that I took. There was a couple problem areas after Chauncey Peak. Probably doesn't get a lot of use. And there were several trail intersections that were, you came to a junction that didn't tell you which way to go. You flip a coin, you go a few hundred feet, you don't see a blaze. You flip a coin, go the other way. Finally, you see a blaze. There's several places where you had to guess your way through and hope you found the right trail. There was no indication, at least the direction I was hiking, as to which way to go. But, you know, that's not a problem. I've done a lot of hiking in my life where you had to sniff things out or not even use trails. So I call up the Topo map, I call up all trails, I call up all these different resources on my phone to help me figure out where I am and where the trail is and how to get back to it. So it didn't cause me too many troubles, but it certainly could if you're not used to sniffing out trails, because it had to be sniffed out in a few places. The rest of this hike was easy as far as the markings go. It was just about a half-mile stretch where the markings were not adequate enough to allow you just to follow it without problems. So we're about back to Atkins Road. I'll be doing the road walk back to Spruce Brook Road, I should say. It's about 2.5 miles on Atkins Road. It wasn't busy this morning when I took it, but it might be busy this time of day. We'll see. And there's a park, a dog park, a Berlin town, I think it's called the Berlin Dog Park, right where those two roads meet. The parking lot is right off of Spruce Brook Road, but right near where Atkins Road crosses it. That's where I parked. There's lots of parking there. From there, it was only a 5-minute walk over to the start of this 7-mile section of the New England Trail. So we'll wrap that up when I get the map out at the end of this hike. Right now, I got to make sure I get back to the parking area before the sun goes down. All right, let's take a look at the New England Trail map for section 13. Got a video from 2 years ago called Introduction to the New England Trail that shows you how to get those maps. The last 5 minutes of that video shows you how to get to that website and how to get each section downloaded. I'll refer to that. And that's how I got this map. I'm actually on an old golf course here. The walk up Atkins Road was fine. It wasn't that busy. The sight lines were good. But there's an old golf course that you can walk on as well. I wasn't aware of it till I got up closer to my parking area. So that's where I am right now, saving myself the last half mile of the road walk. So to do this loop, you can see that green, yellow and green circuitous route of the New England Trail through this area. So that tells me loop hike when I see that. I started right up here where Spruce Brook Road and Atkins Street cross. And this little marker there, it looks like a little, like a square with a square attached to it. That's the old golf club building, public land now, owned by the city of Berlin. And you can park there. Just walk right down Spruce Brook Road, just 2 or 3/10 of a mile. And there's blue blazing there. You're pretty much in somebody's front yard, but there's blue blazing. Turn right, head down in the woods, and gradually ascend Lamentation Mountain with all those views. It's about 2.5 to the top of Lamentation Mountain, which is right in this area here, and another 1.5 miles down to the dam on the Hubbard Reservoir. And then from there, it's like 3 more miles over to Atkins Road here, which is going up and over Chauncey Peak. So cobbly footing, wobbly cobbly, because of the way those rocks break. The basalt breaks into those chunks, and that's why they're mining it, because it breaks into nice even sized chunks. You know, that slows you down a little, but nothing was difficult as far as the footing goes. As far as steepness, you didn't need your hands, and very scenic in places. The problem area is right in here. There were several intersections in there that weren't marked, with no blazing going either way, that I had to just literally flip a coin. And both times I flipped it, I flipped wrong. So I had to go back and try the other way. But I got through it. Nothing I couldn't handle. And the road walk was pretty easy. Getting on this old golf path was pretty easy. Right up in this area here, I could see the old golf path going into the old, where they still have it mowed, as you can see. So that's how I got back. It saved me some road walking. I'd definitely do this loop again. I didn't mind the road walk. The loop was very scenic. If you'd like to see Lamentation Mountain and Chauncey Peak without doing the whole circuit that I did, I think they told me it was Jeffrida Park in Meriden has the New England Trail goes through that, but there's also many other trails shown in different colors here that you can make loops over Lamentation Mountain. There's a yellow trail there that goes right to the summit, and there's other ways you can make like a figure 8 or just a big old loop over both peaks without having to backtrack at all. So that park is owned by the city of Meriden. It's a great area to go hiking around here. So many views on all these trails. The New England Trail has dozens of views. Great time of year to explore it. I'll be back again.